Have you heard the lesson last week, either being here or online? Just raise your hand.
Oh, yes, it is.
Good, okay. You know, part of that, we was talking about people that suffer, and sometimes we say, well, why me? What did I do? And Willie came up after class, he said, well, you know, there's a song, Why Me, Lord?
I mean, Lord.
And I said,
Christmas
really?
time.
Yeah.
I bet you're gonna play it.
You're not supposed to bet.
I guess you're gonna play it.
Why me, Lord? What have I ever done to deserve even one of the pleasures I've known? Tell me, Lord, what did I ever do that was worth loving you? For the kindness you've shown. Lord, help me, Jesus, I've wasted it, so help me, Jesus, I know what I am, but now that I know that I've needed you, so help me, Jesus, my soul's in your hands. Try me, Lord, if you think there's a way that I can repay all I've taken from you. Maybe, Lord, I can show someone else what I've been through myself on my way back to you. Lord, help me, Jesus, I've wasted it, so help me, Jesus, I know what I am, but now that I know that I've needed you, so help me, Jesus, my soul's in your hands. Lord, help me, Jesus, I've wasted it, so help me, Jesus, I know what I am, but now that I know that I've needed you, so help me, Jesus, my soul's in your hands. Jesus, my soul's in your hands.
You are so good looking in that video, Wayne.
Good job, Wayne.
He was really photogenic. Wasn't that great?
Amen.
I did have to stop by and, yeah, I gave him a hand. Poor guy, I said, I'm not picking the song that says that you've wasted it and stuff. It's not that. I just wanted the song with the pictures on there. But I just had to go remind him before I walked up. Y'all saw me talking to him. I didn't want him to be surprised because he didn't know I was going to do this day. I said, is it okay? Because Margie's picture's at the end. Didn't that make a great picture of the two of them?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Willie, there's your song. When it first comes on, it almost sounds like Wayne's voice, doesn't it? I should have lied and said it was. All right. Thanks, Willie, for just reminding me of that. All right, now we'll get back to the lesson. We're going to be doing an October 30th lesson and November 6th. We're trying to get caught up since I did an extra one before. Caring, sharing, and Bible studying. Boy, I'm telling you, last week we really hit these two hard. The caring and the sharing, and the story that we were reading about Boaz, Ruth, and Naomi. Today we still have some of that, but we're going to hit harder in Bible study today. It's 2 lessons in one, and I'll do one lesson completed and start the other. But there's a lot of stuff in here that if you read it by yourself, you wouldn't know what it meant. So we're going to dig together at the meanings of this. And like always, you can interrupt me anytime and either ask me a question or you can tell me I want to make a comment, and that's great too. I'm attempting to cover 2 lessons to catch us up. One day, Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for." I believe that Naomi cared about Ruth so much, she wanted to help her find the right man, get married, and be well provided for. You see the caring part of it there? Do you think that Naomi has a plan in mind? Well, let's find out if you haven't read this already. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, and this is still Naomi talking to Ruth, he's a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley. Remember we talked about winnowing last week. On the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, get dressed in your best clothes. Yep, it looks like Naomi's got a plan for Ruth. It seems that Ruth is learning a lot from Naomi about her God. Remember she was a Moabite. But may still be learning slowly about the Jewish customs. And boy, there's a lot of them. Naomi still talks, said, "Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know that you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do." Notice Naomi said that Boaz would tell her what to do. So Ruth must have had a great deal of faith in Naomi to know only half the plan. Is that right? She's only got half the plan. You got to wait for Boaz to tell you. She said, this is Ruth. She says, I will do whatever you say. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. Ruth agreed to do exactly what Naomi told her to do. She trusted Naomi and obeyed completely. Sounds like a spot for a song, doesn't it? Trust and obey. I'm not putting it in here. I got it at the end just in case we don't have enough time. But see that it leads into these songs like that, trust and obey. So if we have time, it's at the very end, and we probably will have. I said, but I put it at the end of the lesson for that reason. Now, when Boaz had finished eating and drinking, just like Naomi said he would be, he was in good spirits. What does that mean, good spirits?
Drunk.
Huh?
Drunk.
Probably drunk. Probably drunk.
Maybe just buzzed.
Huh?
Maybe just a little buzzed.
Little buzz, somewhere in between maybe little buzz and drunk. How did Naomi know that? Well, God is leading Naomi also. So when Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and she lay down. Now, for a woman to uncover part of a man's body and lie with him is like a marriage proposal. That's the way a lady would propose marriage to a man in those days. Now, to cover herself with part of his clothing is like asking him to provide for her and protect her. That's what she's asking. Naomi thought out a plan where Ruth could discuss the matter of marriage quietly with Boaz without the local people knowing. One night, Ruth crept into the threshing floor where Boaz was sleeping and guarding his grain. She quietly lifted the blanket from his feet. Some believe that that part was done if you uncovered the man's feet, that he might wake up during the night and wake up slowly and see her laying there. Then while others were asleep, she put the request to him by asking him to spread his skirt or robe or tunic, whatever you call them. She was figuratively asking him to take her as his wife. This was not uncommon in that day, and in fact the Canaanites even practiced a similar ritual, as well as some other neighboring nations. Remember, this is a woman's proposal, and you know that's not real common. It's the man that's supposed to propose to the woman. Well, God provided a way that the woman could propose to a man. It also should be noted this was not a sexual act. Boaz could spread his cloak over her, indicating that he accepted her proposal. I will take over for you. I will help you. But he also could stand up, not covering her with his cloak, indicating that he did not accept this proposal of marriage. It's believed by scholars that this type of proposal is done at night so that others do not witness this. For it would be a real embarrassment if the man did not accept the proposal of marriage and he walked away from the woman in broad daylight and in front of all the other women. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's why they did it at nighttime. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. What do you think? Got you? Wake up. He turned, and there was a woman laying at his feet. He said, "Who are you?" He just woke up. She said, "I'm your servant Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of my family." We talked about guardian and redeemer last week. Before Boaz could accept or refuse the proposal, Ruth said, "You are my guardian redeemer." Kind of put a little pressure on him, you know. I believe that Boaz would have accepted this proposal even if he were not the guardian redeemer. Just to add a little info to this, you might be interested to know that it is believed, underline believed, that Ruth was getting close to 40 years old while Boaz was nearly 80.
Oh, my.
Okay. You would think that Boaz should marry Naomi. I mean, you know, closer in age. Bible scholars say that Naomi was not too old to have children, but a man in his 80s could still produce children. You don't find that in the Bible, but you find that written by scholars that study these things. Whatever that's worth. Let's go back reading again in the scriptures. "The Lord said, 'Bless you, my daughter,' he replied. 'This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor.'" So he was flattered by that. My guess, Boaz was elated and honored that Ruth chose him rather than a younger man. Why did she choose Boaz? Because that's what Naomi told her to do. Trust and obey. "And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you what you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. A Moabite, but she has a good reputation. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of your family, there's another who is more closely related than I. What a compliment that he gave to Ruth. A woman of noble character. But Boaz faces an obstacle, a relative that is closer than he. I mean, he can't marry her if the closer relative says, I'm the guardian redeemer and she will become my wife. You'll see how it works out. There's an obstacle in the road to what Boaz would like to accomplish. He said, there is another who is more closely related than I. How can we get that guy out of there? Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants you to do this as your guardian redeemer, good. Let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning. And she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, no one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. You know, he's still kind of keeping that quiet. Not real common for the woman to propose. He also said, bring the shawl you are wearing and hold it out. Hold out this shawl that she's wearing. When she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle under her. Then he went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, how did it go, my daughter? Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her and added, he gave me this 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. So all this going on between Boaz and Ruth, Boaz has not forgotten Naomi at all. Then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will, and she's talking about Boaz, now the man will not rest until this matter is settled today. Naomi has great faith. So let's take a look at our 3 main characters. Naomi, a woman of love. Naomi's love for Ruth goes beyond our greatest expectations. She taught Ruth about the love of her God and then demonstrated this perfect gentleman. The conduct of Boaz calls for the highest praise. He attempted not to take advantage of Ruth. He did not disdain her as a poor, destitute stranger, nor suspect her of any ill intentions. He spoke honorably of her as a virtuous woman. He made her a promise, and as soon as the morning arrived, sent her away with the present for the mother-in-law. What can we take from all 3 of these people? I still like it that you got a whole book in the Bible, and basically it's 3 people. Really great. Naomi loves God and loves others. We can be a Naomi. We should be a Naomi. Ruth, trust and obey. Trust and obey God. Sometimes we have to follow his instruction. Even if we don't understand it, we have to do it. And Boaz, be godly towards others. He wasn't just being godly toward Ruth, but he didn't forget Naomi either. The book of Ruth, to be continued next week. It's over. Guess what?
And have more donuts.
It's next week. It's next week.
That's fast.
Hey, Willie.
Yeah, I thought Naomi was the relative of Boaz, not Ruth.
The relative. It was Naomi. What?
And why is Ruth going to Boaz and he says you have a closer relative?
Because she was married to Naomi's son, Mahalo.
Okay, so
And
that makes her a relative, right?
Makes her the relative, yeah. Good, don't be afraid to ask questions. If I don't know, I'll make up something. No. Okay, Ken?
You know, years and years ago, there was a movie about Ruth and Boaz and Naomi. Stuart Whitman was Boaz. I can't remember who played Ruth, but there was it was probably 50 years ago. I don't know if anybody recalls it but me. But anyway, it was a very good movie.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, movies help see the picture of things.
I think Tom Tyrone played Boaz.
Okay, before we get into the next lesson, I'd like for you to see what this looks like in a video. Was his Timon Garfic talking about a video? I have one. I don't know if it's the same one you have. Probably not, because I'll show you why. The narrator in this section of the movie speaks in English, but when Naomi or Ruth or Boaz speaks, it's in their Hebrew language. And so you have to read the screen what it's really saying. They were trying to make this as authentic as they could. So when it's the narrator, you hear him in English. When it's one of these three people speaking, it's in Hebrew, and you just have to read on the screen. And sometimes they move the screen too fast. You can't read the whole sentence. So read fast as we go through. I cut this out of a big piece of movie just to give you this portion about what we just read, okay? This will stick in your mind better.
את צריכה בית, מקום שלך, שם תוכלי לנוח וליהנות משארית חייך. בועז יהיה הערב בגורן. אני רוצה שתפגשי אותו.
Isn't she pretty?
אני רוצה שתלכי אל הגורן. שתקסימי אותו ויופיח. וריחך המתוק. אבל יישארי מכוסה עד שיסבע בירבה צמאונו. כשישכב לנוח, קחי את הגלימה שלו ושכבי למרגל אותנו. כל אשר אסור יעשה.
And Ruth went down to the threshing floor and did as Naomi requested. Would this evening mark a turning point for Ruth and Naomi? Or would Boaz perceive it as an awkward scheme intended to manipulate him? Only time would tell. Only the Lord knew. In the evening, after Boaz had finished eating and drinking, he went down to the threshing floor with a merry heart. The barley and wheat season had been good to him. The threshing floor had brought forth grain in abundance. His workers had served him well. Even those who had gleaned among his fields had been thankful. This evening, Boaz was grateful to be counted among the many in Bethlehem who had been richly blessed by the Lord. Yes, on this night, Boaz would sleep well. Ever faithful, his nearby fire would provide its warmth. Ever friendly, the harvest moon would provide its light. And ever present, the Lord would provide his tender mercy and care. Ruth could hear her own heartbeat. Naomi had often told her about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, about the children of Israel and miracles in the desert. Surely this occasion had to be orchestrated by the same Lord God of Israel. And Ruth uncovered his feet, and there she rested. And it came to pass at midnight that Boaz was startled.
מי את? אני רות. כבודך. אתה זוכר אותי? פרוס כנפך על עמתך. אתה הוא גואלי.
לברך אותך אלוהים, זאת פגישה טובה. כל כך הרבה דברים צעירים ממני בבית לחם. לא הלכת אחרי. שירים מואמים. אשת חי. אל תפחד. אני אדאג לך. כן, אני גואלך, אבל יש גואל קרוב לי. אולי הוא ירצה לגאול אותך. אם הוא לא ירצה, אני אגאל אותך. מבטיח לחיי אדוני. תשארי איתי כאן. תשארי כאן בבוקר.
And Ruth lay at his feet until morning, arising early, lest she be recognized.
אל תספרי על כך לאיש. תני לי את הצעיף שלה.
And Boaz measured out 6 measures of grain and gave it unto Ruth, telling her to bring it home to Naomi. It was more than a kind gesture. It was proof that Boaz was concerned about Naomi's welfare and that he cared deeply for Ruth.
קחי לך.
אני רוצה לשמוע הכל. ספרי מה קרה.
תראי, 6 מידות שעורים. הוא אמר, קחי את זה לנעמי.
לאט לאט ילדתי. בואי נראה מה יקרה עכשיו. האמיני לי, אני מכירה את בועז. הוא לא ינוח עד שתיפטר שאלת הגואל.
That kind of shows you what we just read, doesn't it? Does that help a little bit sometimes? It does to me. I like to see that. But I have to be careful that there's not something in there that does not belong. So they tried to use the exact words out of the scriptures. Of course, it could be King James, it could be the NIV, but I think it's good. With that, now we're ready to start on lesson number 2, which is today's lesson. The last verse from the previous lesson was, "Then Naomi said, 'Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until this matter is settled tomorrow.'" Right? Today. That's when Jesus was on the cross. He didn't say tomorrow. He said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." Now the scene moves from Naomi and Ruth's home to the town gate of Bethlehem. Meanwhile, Boaz went to the town gate and he sat down there just as the guardian redeemer he had mentioned came along. Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and he sat down. What is the significance of a town gate? Let's take a look at it. Besides being part of the city's protection from invaders, city gates were places of central activity in biblical times. It was at the city gates that important business transactions were made, court was convened, and public announcements were heralded. The Bible frequently speaks of setting in the gate or the activities that took place at the gate. The first mention of a city gate is found in Genesis 19:1. It was at the gate of Sodom that Abraham's nephew Lot greeted the angels of the visitors to the city. Lot was there with other leading men of the city, either discussing the day's business or engaging in important civic business. We read about it in Genesis 19. The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was what? He was sitting in the gateway of the city. I just want you to understand how they use that and what goes on at the gates. We have other examples of different types of business transactions that took place at the city gate or town gate. You can call it either one. So I'm just going to pick one for you. I think you might find this one interesting. In Deuteronomy 21, if a man has a stubborn or rebellious son who will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and though they discipline him, will not listen to them, then his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders at the city gate of the place where he lives. Isn't that interesting? That's where courts convened in those days. Look at this. "And they shall say to the elders of this city, 'This our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of the city shall stone him to death with stones.'" Woo! You know what? Those pretty harsh words. Where did they come from? Moses wrote it, but who told Moses what to write? God. Wow. I'd never seen that before in the scriptures, I don't think. There are many other events in the Bible that occur at the city gates or town gates, but let's return to the meeting that Boaz has called at the town gate. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here," and they did so. Then he said to the guardian redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to her relative Elimelech." Boaz selected 10 men to be witnesses of what was going to take place. God is working out his plan through Boaz, Ruth, and Naomi. Was it just by chance that other guardian redeemer just happened to walk by at that time, at that place? It's just coincidence, right? Scared to answer? Oh, I think God had a hand in that. I don't think it was a coincidence. God's revealing his plan. He's rolling it out. Boaz didn't have to go look for him. God brought the guy to Boaz. Naomi had put the land belonging to her deceased husband, Elimelech, up for sale. If she did sell it, it was the duty of the guardian redeemer to buy it back. But along with the land comes the relatives, in this case, Naomi and Ruth. We'll read about that in Leviticus 25, where that comes from. If a fellow countryman of yours becomes so poor he has to sell part of his property, then his nearest kinsman is to come and buy back what his relative had sold. So that's written laws in the Old Testament. Boaz is speaking now, and he says, I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy, and he's speaking to that first guardian redeemer, you buy it in the presence of these seated here, and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. For the first guardian redeemer, this is what do it except you, and I am next in line. So he's doing his duty. I let you do it. Take this opportunity. Oh, the first one said, I will redeem it. Poor Boaz. Wow, that was not what Boaz wanted to hear, was it? But Boaz was prepared, just in case the first guardian redeemer said yes and agreed to buy it back. That's really what Boaz said next. Plan B. Then Boaz said, on the day you buy back the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, of the dead man's widow in Naomi, in order to maintain the name of the property of the dead with the property. So Boaz was hoping that the first Redeemer would not want both Naomi and Ruth, the Moabite, and maybe he could change his mind. He would change his mind. At this, the guardian redeemer said, then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. He didn't want the two women. He wanted the land. Then he says, you redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. So the guardian redeemer said to Boaz, buy it yourself, and he removed his sandal. Now finally, Boaz heard the words he wanted to hear from the first redeemer. I cannot redeem it. Buy it yourself. That's what he was hoping for. Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. Isn't that interesting? Now Boaz needed this event notarized. That's what we would call it today, right? And how did they do that? The first Redeemer took off his sandal and he handed it to Boaz in front of all the witnesses that were there. That sealed the deal for Boaz with witnesses. Sandals in the Bible. Sandals were important in Israel and in surrounding nations. They protected the feet, especially when walking in the hot sand. We just read about the use of a sandal to finalize an agreement between Boaz and the first Redeemer. The words sandal or sandals are mentioned about 25 times in the Bible. So we're going to just look at a few quick ones. You remember this, when the Lord saw that he, being Moses, had gone over to look at the burning bush, God called to him from within the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here am I. Then God says, do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Y'all remember that? Take off your sandals. You're standing on holy ground in the presence of God Almighty. You might be asking, why did God tell Moses to take his sandals off? Well, you know, he gave the reason in the scripture we just read, for the place where you're standing is holy ground. Moses wasn't the only one that God told to remove his sandals. In the book of Joshua, God replied to Joshua and said, take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy. And God did, and Joshua did so. So there's a lot to do with sandals in the scriptures here. For sure, it's a sign of respect, even now when you go into almost any home in Asia, and when some of some in Africa, you'll take off your shoes before entering the house. We had, when we lived in Arizona, Glenda and I, we had a class I taught about maybe 14 people, and one couple, she had been a missionary and she married this guy, and he was from Taiwan. They're a really neat couple. We were having a fellowship at their house. So we pulled up in the car and we looked, and somebody else had beat us there. And there was there were 6 shoes, 3 pairs of shoes on front. So we took ours off and we walked in, and the next people behind us took off their shoes and walked in. And when the guy come in, he said, "Why are y'all taking your shoes off?" "We just did it because we were working in the yard. We don't take off shoes to walk around the house." "Well, you didn't know. You're standing there." He was the one when we had a party. We asked everybody to bring a Christmas card and tell why it was important to you. And when it got around to him, he held up one. You could see the like Chinese or Japanese buildings and all that. And somebody said, "Well, why is that so important to you?" And he started around and says, "Made in USA." He was a character. Sandals, I couldn't help but put that in there. If you go to a Muslim home or any mosque, you will take off your shoes. If you go to a Korean church to preach, you will leave your shoes before you climb into the pulpit. It's a worldwide sign of respect. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people today, "You are witnesses that I have bought or purchased from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahon. I have also acquired Ruth, the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife in order to maintain the name of the deed with this property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today you are witnesses." That's why he gathered those up to be at the gate. Then the elders and all the people at the gate said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home, like Rachel and Leah, who were together, built up the family of Israel. Many of you have the standing of Ephrath and be famous in Bethlehem." Who were Rachel and Leah? Anybody know?
Jacob's wife.
Jacob's wife, yeah. He went to go marry Rachel and had to work 7 years, and he slipped in at nighttime and put Leah in there, so had to work another 7 years to get Rachel. And they each had their own handmaids, Zilpah and Bilhah. And down below you can see, there comes your 12 tribes of Israel. And the important one was to have the descendant through Judah, because that's in Matthew in their lineage. The elder said, "May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel." A very nice blessing from the elders that were there. Then the elders and all the people at the gate said, "We are witnesses." Did I read that already?
Yeah.
I think I did. Ephrath in the Hebrew means fruitful. It is either an earlier name for Bethlehem, or it's the district in which Bethlehem is located. I try to put how I pronounce it down at the bottom page. It's Ephrathah. Hard to do. Bethlehem is in the Hebrew means house of bread. Genesis 35 said, "So Rachel died and was buried on her way to Ephrath," that is Bethlehem. That would make you think that the one's just an older name for it. Also in Micah, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah," see, we went through Judah, "out of you will come one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are made from ancient times." So no big deal on that. "Through the offspring, the Lord gives you by this woman, may your family be like that of Perez, who Tamar bore, and Judah." This was a typical blessing. Does anybody remember the story of Judah and Tamar? We're going to skip it right now because we're just about out of time. That was a lot of scripture and a lot of Bible study. I told you last week we really had caring and sharing, and here we had a lot of Bible study today. Just like earlier, I wanted you to see a video what that looks like. I'm going to do it again.
So Boaz went to the gate of the city, a common meeting place for those living in Bethlehem. And there he met the other kinsman redeemer, the one that Boaz had spoken of to Ruth. Boaz was committed to resolving the question as to who rightly should acquire Elimelech's land, and, more importantly, who should become Ruth's kinsman. In his heart, he cared for Ruth, but according to the custom of the day, he could not pursue her as he was not the closest living relative of Elimelech. His heart's desire could wither away here at the city gate. An important meeting such as this deserved a proper hearing by Bethlehem's most respected elders. None of them knew it, but they were about to witness a decision which would affect the future of all Israel. Boaz's good standing in the community couldn't help him here, nor could his wealth. It was all in the hands of the Lord.
נעמי, שחזרה מארץ מואב, רוצה למכור את חלקת האדמה של אלימלך, אחינו. אני מציע שתקנה אותה. תגאל אותה למען עניי הזקנים, היום. אתה הגואל הראשון. אחריך.
אלימלך היה תמיד איש טוב. אדמתו הייתה עשירה ופוריה, כן. אני אגאל אותה.
רק חשוב שתדע שברגע שאתה קונה את האדמה של נעמי, אתה קונה גם את רות, המואביה. אלמנתו של מחלון. מחלון היה בנה של נעמי, והשם שלו יישאר תמיד, לנצח, עם האדמה.
אני לא יכול לרכוש את האדמה, זה יפגע באדמתי. אני מציע שאתה תרכוש את האדמה, אתה תגאל אותה, גם את האדמה וגם את זה.
I'm going to stop it right there. I just wanted you to see the passing of the sandal.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Do they have extra sandals?
Huh? I don't know. I wasn't there. What do you think?
He left with one sandal.
What they didn't say in the scriptures is, did Boaz give his sandal back to him? Or did he take it as, you know, I always have this. The Bible doesn't say so. You can put it whatever you think might happen. But that's the city gates and the town gates. I wanted you to be sure you understood that that's where they conducted business a lot there. Today we learned about the Jewish custom concerning marriage proposals, and we also learned about the meeting at the gate and how agreement was sealed using a sandal. Those are the two things we wanted to learn. But I told you I had trust and obey at the end, and I just got to do it. It's one of my favorite groups. I want y'all to hear this and we'll be done.
Trust and obey, for there's no other way.
They're so good.
To be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. When we walk with the Lord in the light of His word, what a glory He sheds on our way. While we do His good will, He abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey.
Watch this middle guy in a minute. He has a low voice, a medium, and a high.
To be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way. To be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey.
Then in fellowship's feet, we will sit at His feet. All we want is
saints, we will go. We will go. Never fear, only trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way.